Hi, everyone. Just getting set up here. Sweet. Hi, everyone. Just getting set up here. Yes, we are. Hi, guys. It's me, Sarah James with Jesse James Beads, and I am live and alive with your friend, UK-based designer, Jem Hawkes. Jem, it's great to have you here again on Thursday.
Thank you so much for continuing to ask me back. It's an absolute thrill to be with you. And oh my goodness, we were just chatting about some of the pieces that we'll be using tonight, or this afternoon as the case might be, and they are stunning. So beautiful.
Thank you, Jem. I love when we can pass our beads onto a designer and then we get feedback like that. So yes.
Absolutely glorious. There's no other word I want to use.
So guys, today we are working with wire. Jem is a wire wrapping Wonder Woman. If you haven't seen her stuff yet, I don't know if you've been living under a rock or what, but Jem has got another amazing tutorial for us today, showing us how to twist wire up into a beautiful focal piece. Jem, tell us a little bit about that.
That's inspired by my good friend Sarah, who said, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we did a thing? So I made it gem flavored and we did a thing. And what I've got for you tonight is one that I'm going to show you how to make, which is this one. But I've also brought along, just for fun, variations on a theme that we can chat about at a point later in time. So we're going to be using really beginner friendly wires tonight as well. They're round in 18 and 24 gauge. So it is accessible for people who are perhaps not as familiar with wire.
I love that. And I love, I'm just looking at the samples that you have here. I love how fluid the wire looks. Like, I love how the turns, it looks like it's just like melted into place, Jem. How do you achieve that?
Well, with the 18 gauge, it is butter soft. And as I am always going to be saying, and you will hear it again and again, if you warm the wire first, it will do magical things for you. Plus also, I'm going to be using a ring mandrel, but you absolutely can use a lip gloss or the lid of nail varnish, or, you know, it depends on how big you want these sweeping curves to be, but you don't have to have a professional tool for this. You can use almost anything that's a good solid round form.
Cool. We've got a mandrel at the shop that I think would work really well for this, and I'll drop some links once we flip the camera down to the mat here. I'm just checking over on Facebook. Hey, if you guys are tuning in, feel free to say hi so that we know that you're here. And Jem, why don't we take this down and show us what we're going to be working with, and then let's just do it to it. I love these two projects that you have shown for us. Are you ready?
I am indeed ready. What I'm going to do is just give a quick flash of this. This is variations on a theme. I'm going to pop this larger one out of the way, and then I will show you what we're going to be making. So let me just pop that one over. Hopefully it won't fall on the floor, but that's kind of my meta, so it might happen. So this is the actual piece we're going to be working on tonight. I added in some beautiful chain that Sarah sent through to me. You can, if you want to, and I will show you how to make these individual rosary style links. You can make the whole chain out of these, or you can add in some that somebody else has already done for you, which is always nice to take a break. You don't have to do it all yourself. But this is the primary section that we're going to be learning, which is 2 pieces of wire only for that main segment, and then some little extras to drop on down. And this bead is possibly one of the most exquisite beads I've seen in my life.
Okay.
And it's absolutely stunning. It really is beautiful. There's a stately home not far from where I live called Upton House, and they have a chinoiserie room, and it's full of oriental inspired furniture. Ooh. This is where this takes me, so absolutely gorgeous. But this is what we're going to learn how to do, and we're going to start with this centerpiece. So if I pop that over to one side, hopefully I won't knock that on the floor, but you know, the night is young, as they say, and it could happen. Never
Right.
say never, you know what I mean.
I love it. I'm so excited. Barbara was also excited. She says, hello, fun video. Rosanna says, hi. So does
Hi.
Connie and Roberta. Hi, Jessica. Hi, Stephanie. Hey, Sharon. Hi, Robin. Hey, Sheila. All right, guys, let's do it. I'm so excited. Jem, take it away.
Bless you. So I'm working with 18 gauge to begin with, and this is approximately 18 inches, which is about 45 centimeters if you prefer those little measurements instead, but it's 18 inches, and it's that beautiful raw copper round in 18 gauge. So what I will do to begin with any project where I'm asking the wire to be smooth and fluid, so I'm going to grip hold of one end of that and then just draw the whole length through once or twice. Now there are two reasons for doing this. One is to get this nice and warm so that when you start putting those shapes in, it remains fluid, but also any little kinks from it traveling, because obviously when your wire's on a reel, like so, when it's in transit, these bits can bend over and they can get a little bit out of order. So definitely give that a nice smooth and make sure that you're happy with its fluidity. So what we will do to begin with is take our round form, which could be a mandrel that Sarah's going to tell you about in the comments, or it could indeed be like a lip gloss or the lid of a nail varnish. And what I want to do to begin with is create, this is in the center of that 18 inches or so, I want to create a circular form, but not completely close it up. So that's just going to bang the camera for a second. All I'm doing is I'm picking a place on my mandrel. Now, if you want to, you could just mark that with a marker pen, which you can later take off with nail polish remover, or you can use a ring stick, which has a size, so that you know whereabouts to make that form. So I'm going to take this right down to the bottom and make it quite small. If I take the mandrel out of the position for a second, you can see that I've got a good half circle, but I've not completely closed that up because because we warmed the wire, it's very fluid and it wants to work hard for you. And what I'm looking to do is to create a teardrop shape. And once I have that teardrop shape, and these could be quite short and chunky like that, or they could be a bit more long and elaborate and elegant, it's entirely up to you. Once I have that basic form, I'm going to pop in with any flat facing pliers. I'm using my bent chain nose pliers just because they're fine tapered point. If I pop underneath, and then take the wire that comes in this direction all the way over, and then what I need to do is just bring that down and do that on the other side, like so. And if I just hold that in the center for a second, you'll see a little bit of a kink there, so just work that out very, very gently. So we have a teardrop shape with two quite firm angles going out at 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock. When you're working with me, I tend to think in the cardinal points of a clock face because it's just a little bit easier for me to reference for you. So we've made those bends at the very, very top of our teardrop shape, and they're coming out at 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock. They're crossing over. So the next thing that we need to do is recreate that shape 2 more times. We're going to create one here and then one here. So because I've got an overhead camera that's quite close to the screen, what I need to do is draw the wire all the way around. Now, you would want to try and keep this in as 2D shape as possible, but what I'm going to do is slightly moderate that so that you can see the process. So you would have the shape going in to form that circular shape at the bottom. That's come ever so slightly up, so I'm just going to straighten that down. So you can see that the wire has come around to the side, recreated that almost teardrop shape, and then it's continuing in a straight line off over there. What I'm going to do is just twist this around slightly, warm the wire section by section, maybe 3 or 4 times over that wire each time, and I'm going to repeat that bend. Now again, I'm going to be doing it slightly, as we say in the UK, cat-handed, which isn't a particularly lovely expression. What I would want to do is keep it completely flat, but I'm having to twist it slightly so I can show you what we're achieving. Now let's have a look and see how equal that is. What we want to do is to create those 3 forms as symmetrically and similarly sized as possible. So if, for instance, this was too large, you could pop the form back in and just gently roll that around a little bit, re-straighten that tail, and you'll find that it shrinks down and should fit quite nicely. So I'm going to turn this around now so that it sits in the orientation as it would on the neckline. So I just have to take that out of shot for a second so it doesn't make the lamp fall over, which is another of my favourite tricks. So I think I might need to just push that ever so slightly up like so. And then what we're going to do is bring those pliers underneath again. But instead of making a bend that sits directly across the top here, we're going to leave a little gap because we're going to introduce in a moment some of these absolutely beautiful beads, which Sarah will tell you about, I'm sure. They're such a gorgeous colour as well. There's more of them on the table than I had anticipated, but that is literally my life. So I'm going to, it's a true story. If there's not beads on the floor, I'm not working hard enough. So I'm popping those chain nose pliers underneath, and what I want to do is push a bend, and I will trace the design in just a second. So you can see there's a gap between this nexus point in the center. I've come up a little way, enough to fit one of these beads into position before I make that bend. Now you can see that's slightly bent along here, so all I'm going to do is open and close a handful of times just to get a reasonably straight form along here. What I will do before I make the second bend is trace the line for you. So we did start in the middle, but I'm going to trace how that factors through from one end to the other. So we're coming all the way down, we're turning up to make that first loop, we have a sharper bend to come down for that central loop, over to the left hand, it's almost like a little angel wing, before we have a reasonably firm bend over to the right. So you can see how that tracks all the way through. So what I need to do now is make the opposite bend so that both sides are reasonably symmetrical. So again, just popping those pliers underneath before I just by eye gauge that I've got a similar kind of shape and size. I can move that up slightly because we warmed our wire. If it's a little bit short, I can just move that up slightly, smooth the wire over, and then we can take stock of where we're at. So I'm reasonably happy with that shape at the moment. The next thing that we would do is make sure that our two ends, so this and this, are actually the same length. It's actually really tricky to estimate the exact centerpiece unless you use a tape measure, or you're a lot cleverer than I am, which, you know, isn't difficult. So what I will do now is I'm going to borrow a piece of wire, and I'm going to pop that against the one side. Just bring this into shot a second. I'm going to pinch with my thumb and forefinger, flip that back over in the opposite direction, and lay it to the other side. And then what I can do is move that out of the way, and I can see how much I need to trim away. If you have a ruler, that would also be a really cool use of your ruler or a tape measure. So we've now got symmetrical sides to work with, which is always useful. So what we're going to do is put a coil on either side of these, and I should just pop in for a second with the reference piece so you can see where we're at. Let me just grab my chain nose pliers. So we've made this central form with the loops, and what we're going to do now is put coils on either end, and then we shall introduce these little channel set beads on that part of the design. So for this, you will need a round nose plier. So I'm going to give that another little smooth, and this is going to be coiling downwards. Now, I seem to have got quite a lot of wire here, so if you think that that's too much, then you can, of course, trim away equally. The eagle-eyed among you will notice that I went for the round nose pliers and in fact picked up chain nose pliers. So I've switched to my round nose pliers now, and we're going to start off by making small movements to get that curl or that coil moving. So if I flip that over, you can see what we've made. I will then come back in with any flat-facing pliers. This is going to be quite a large coil that we're making on this demonstration piece. You can trim that wire away if you prefer to, but what I want to show you is you can 100% make variations on a theme using the exact same techniques. You don't even have to change the beads up if you don't want to. Although I have got another piece to share with you later with one of those gorgeous diamond shine strands. So I'm just going to keep moving that until it gets reasonably close to the end here. What I will then do is flip the design over. Because I'm right dominant, it's easier for me to work on this side. So what I'm going to do is just repeat where we started from. So again, I've actually managed to get round nose pliers this time, so round of applause for me. Small movements and little by little. So I've started off with that coiled section. Need to get that into a reasonably good coil. Just get that slightly tighter so that it matches the other side, and then bring that in together so that the two sides are reasonably symmetrical. So when you're making coils, whether they're open or closed coils, taking time is the key to making it neat. Right. And then I can hear some voices, but I cannot see anybody speaking. Is that you, Sarah? Is there a question? On my feed at the moment, you are frozen, so I can't see or hear you. I still can't hear you, so I'm going to continue until I can.
Oh, is that so? Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. You're back in the room. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. I don't know why that happened. I was trying to share and I think that my Facebook doesn't want me to do that. So
okay. Facebook has been very naughty this week.
So very, very naughty. But if I can just interject real quick, because I am not able to share this, could someone please be so kind as to share this video with any of your favorite wire working or jewelry making groups here on Facebook that you think might also enjoy it? Please and thank you. This has been a message from your friend Sarah James here in behind stage. Continue, Jem, please.
From stage left, speak to the director, and the director has asked for a share. So I've tried to get these coils reasonably symmetrical. Obviously, you can take a little bit more time. You can make them larger, you can make them smaller. It's such a lovely project to work with the 18 gauge, but I will just pop in very quickly the alternative variation on a theme and show you what it looks like with 16 gauge. So this is with one of the Diamond Shine. Let me just tell you which one it is. Diamond Shine Harriet Tan strand.
That's a good one. Those are Preciosa crystals.
Oh,
they're
so pretty. So shiny, and it complementary color. I didn't think that they would go with the raw copper, but they 100% do. So if you want to work with a heavier gauge, go for that 16 gauge. You'll find that this section is super easy to make, but the flying seagull section above is slightly trickier to achieve in 16 gauge. You could even mix it up, make the centerpiece in 16 and the top in 18 if you wanted to. So it's entirely within your control to change that up however you feel. So for the next stage of the demonstration, I'm going to be using some 24 gauge wire, which I think is equivalent to about 0.5 mil, 0.5 mil. And I'm also going to be using these gorgeous little doohickeys. Are they 3 mil? There's another one popping out to say hello. Story of my life.
Yeah, those are 3mm Czech beads. And I popped a link down here to the blog that will have the replay of this video on it a little bit later. And all the supplies for this video that Jem is creating for this project can be found right there.
Fantastic, thank you very much. So what I want to show you now is a little bit of light channel setting. Now at the moment this is all flimmy flammy and it wants to kind of just wiggle around a little bit. So I'm using here about 12 inches of this lighter 24 gauge wire. If you are really confident with your wire work, you can use a section that is 24 inches long, start in the middle and move in both directions. What I have done is made this a beginner-friendly project, and we are doing 2 separated segments of wire wrapping. If you want to do it all in one go and you feel confident to do that, then please do consider that an aesthetic. It looks really nice if you can do that. So there goes one of those little 3mm beads on a little adventure by itself across the desk, as expected. What I am going to do is create this in 2 halves. So I'm going to take one end of my 24 gauge wire, and I'm just going to lay that over the top to begin with. Like I said, this is all kind of flimsy at the moment, so we want to build some strength. So I'm taking the finer gauge wire over the top, and I want to wrap it just here around this single wire. So again, for the sake of the camera, I'm going to use my pliers to try and get this going. If you can do this by hand to start with, it's so much easier for you, but obviously it's trickier to show you that with a camera up close and personal. So all we're doing is we're winding, not rinding, I don't even know what that is, winding the finer gauge wire 3 times around. As I said, you will find this much easier when you are not positioning it far away from your face. So just going to chase that end all the way around until we get those 3 turns, trying not to mash your little butterfly kind of shaped section in the meantime. So we've got 3 turns of wire, and because it's such beautifully behaving wire, I'm just going to slide that along. Now this is currently upside down to how it will finally be on the neckline, but that is going to be the easiest way to show you how to add these beads in. So 3 times around this section just here, pinch that so it doesn't move around, find the end of your finer gauge wire and introduce one of those 3mm Czech beads. Allow that to zip line into position, and then we're going to wrap 3 times around this upper section. So that's once, twice, 3 times, and then it passes underneath. And what we're going to do is wrap 3 times around this section again. So if I just push the leading edge of the wire up through the first of those teardrop shapes. Now because you're working with 24 gauge instead of 26 gauge, it's reasonably strong, so be careful when you pull that through or you might mash your design slightly. So we have an opening just here, which enables us to bring the length of the wire through. Can you see how this wire is getting a little bit pointy? That means that your wire is a bit tired, not your wire, my wire. So we need to be super respectful. When your wire starts telling you that, you need to just be aware and kind of read the signs. So I'm going to pull that up and through. Again, being careful because it's a little bit stronger than a weaving wire can be. So I've got a bare pass of wire over the surface now. So again, I will find the tail end of that wire and I will pop in one of those little 3mm. What's the colour of this called? It's such a beautiful green.
I am not sure. I'm going to.
Sorry. I'm
muted?
sorry. I'm asking questions. I do apologise.
I need to ask questions. I'm gonna. It's called green. I think it might be mint green, but I'll get
mint green. I like it. It's a lovely fresh colourway, really fresh, and it tones beautifully with bronze, with rose gold, and with the copper that we're working with. So I'm going to pinch the 2 beads that I have in position already, and then wrap 3 times. I'm going to show you a speed run way to wrap, like so. If you find that those coils are getting a bit feisty and not sitting neatly, just give them a tiny, tiny squeeze and they should sit much more neatly. So when the wire is underneath the design, no bead, push that leading edge up through. See how the wire is now coming through smoothly? That means we've used up that section of tired wire. So our project is not going to be problematic. The more you understand why your wire is doing the things it's doing, the easier wire work becomes to you personally. So I'm just going to scooch those 3 little coils up, and I'm going to add 1 more bead in before we discuss how many times you would like to see me trying to find the hole of a small bead, because it's far away from my face. There we go. Zip line into the gap, hold that over the channel, grip the bead, and then 1 and 2 and 3, push that up inside and on you go. So with my demonstration piece, I have got 5 beads on either side. And even with the heavier 16 gauge variation with the Preciosas, there are also 5 beads. They just happen to be much larger. So if you want to have 5 beads, which will fill this gap nicely, then do so. But if you want to make a much more dinky centerpiece, then that's entirely up to you as well. Shall I continue all the way along to the end, Sarah, on the one side, or would you like me to move on to the next segment?
Let's ask the crowd. Why don't you do one more? And what do you feel? Would you like Jem to move on to the next section? Or would you like for her to continue with 5 beads on each side?
So I'm going to just do a visual run through now. So the wire is there when it goes underneath. When it's over the top of the design, it has a bead on the finer gauge. And I'm always wrapping 3 times either side. Now, that's just because it's a good number. You can see those wraps as part of the design. It's visually, aesthetically pleasing. But as long as you do the same number every time you're doing that part of the technique, it really doesn't matter. If you do something like 7 or 8 wraps either side, it looks really striking, but it can be more difficult to get those beads to sit neatly. So maybe try 3 times if this is your first time trying out, and then see how you go from there.
Yeah, the 3 times looks really great, and our fans are asking for you to continue.
Lovely. Okay, then what I shall do is I think I shall add a 6th bead on this side, and then we'll have a look and see what that looks like in comparison. So let me just smooth that wire. What you will find is, because I'm working with this section quite a lot, it's a little bit kinked. Now, the temptation here is to rub this and make it super, super warm. I endorse rubbing the heavier gauges to make them warm and flexible, but your finer gauge wires, you don't really want to do that too many times, because it can pre-weaken it and you will end up regretting that when it snaps on you. So I'm going to cast off now, not a knitter. And to do that, I'm going to flip the design over. I've actually added 6 beads on this side. Trim the correct wire. Please always look twice and cut once. And can you see that end bit there? We're just going to smooth that tail so that it sits against the rest of the central core wire, this wire here. So if you grip very, very gently and loosely and just move your pliers in the same direction as the cut end, you can make that super smooth, and then it won't impact you if it catches on hair or skin or clothing, scarves, etc. So you can see the underside of a channel set looks quite different. I actually think it looks really cool on this side. It just happens to be less comfortable on the body. If I flip this over, this is the direction that we would normally wear it in. There's merits to showing the underside if you want to, but this is definitely more comfortable because having that wire pass underneath, it raises the beads away from the body. So it's entirely up to you which way around you do that. So you would add on in exactly the same way, going in the opposite direction, taking time to make sure that you're happy with your form. Now, this part of the design is easier in essence with your 16 gauge, but the next step is definitely simpler with the 18 gauge, because, let me just grab you the piece in 18 gauge, you can see they are visually quite different, even though it's only kind of 1 gauge gap apart. This is almost more industrial, but getting those curves, after I'd massacred the wire a bit, that I got a little bit stroppy with the wire, and it then became difficult to work with. So as long as you're confident and calm, you run that between thumb and forefinger to warm it the first time, you'll be absolutely fine. Don't get stroppy with it, which is a flaw in wire work. So for the next section, what we're looking to do is to start off by creating a seagull shape as drawn by a 4-year-old. So to do this, Sarah's losing it slightly now.
I'm loving this right now.
So this is around about 8 inches of your 18 gauge. I'm using round raw copper. My preference is to use round for this design. It's beautiful and it's accessible. So if you were smart, you'd have a ruler quite close by to make a very firm bend into a V shape. So instead of getting a ruler out, I'm just going to bend that all the way up and trim the ends away so that they are equal in length. The length is actually kind of less important almost than the fact that those are equal in their shape and size. So what I will do is bring in my bent chain nose pliers, pop them underneath and try and sharpen up this central bend. So just by putting the pliers on either side of that bend a couple of times, what we can do is get a nice firm bend in that central section. Turn it onto the flat and just give that a gentle squeeze to set that shape. Now what I want to do now is warm this wire in this direction so that it kind of flows open like the wings of a seagull in the distance. So I'm going to do that on both sides before I start bringing in my round nose pliers to create those coils. So picking up the correct pliers this time, sorry that had a nasty flip over there, I'm going to start very close to the end on this section of wire and start turning that around so that we're making a coil on either end. So once I've got the coil started, I want to be swapping over to my flat facing pliers. I will use my bent chain nose pliers for almost everything. Thought for a second I bodged the camera horribly then. Is it all okay still?
Everything is great, yeah.
Super duper. So what I would do with a design like this is have a bit of work on one side, flip it over and do a bit of work on the other side. What I don't want to do is get too far down, realise I've gone too far and then have to undo the wire because that's when it gets stroppy, much like I was earlier. So starting with that loop, almost a complete circle there, and then bringing in those bent chain nose pliers, any flat facing pliers will do. Now what I've noticed already is that the loop on this side is slightly larger, so I'm just going to use the desk as my assistant and close that up slightly. There are so many different ways that you can turn a coil and you need to find what is most comfortable for you. Some people do all the work with their dominant hand and the other hand is just holding. I probably do a bit of a combination of both. So both sides are working and we're just trying to get that to look reasonably equal at this stage. So you again will spend a little bit more time trying to get that to look symmetrical before we start offering it up to our section. So obviously you will add in that second side and you will want to put in the same number of beads, and unless you really like asymmetry, this is not really designed to be asymmetrical. So I've just seen that I'm not really happy with that, so I'm just giving that a quick squeeze and add a very gentle curvature to it. Pop that back up out of the way. What I can see is I need to bring these coils down. So because we warmed that wire, at this stage we can start moving, and you can see because you warmed the wire, that curvature just wants to curve. It's beautiful to work with. It's one of the reasons I love wire. You can get it to do most things. Doesn't really like hang the laundry for you or anything, but you know, you can't have everything in life. So what I want to happen is for the V section to sit inside the V we made here above our first teardrop, and then we want those two side segments to sit down over the top. So once you've got that lined up beautifully, and I think just a little bit more downwards on either side, that's going to sit pretty perfectly. It's kind of hard to see the symmetry when I've only done one side. So again, we'll be working with now some quite short lengths. This is an offcut from my first side here, and this is the 24 gauge round wire. So all we're looking to do is to wrap 3 times around the upper bar. We'll start just here next to the end of where our beads are, and then I'll wrap 3 times around both this bar and the lowest section of that coil, and then 3 times around just this bar again. So to do that, I'm going to flip it on its side and then upside down, You could, if you wanted to, continue with the section of wire that you were adding the beads into the channel with, but I needed to show you how to do this by adding more wire on. So if you want to recreate that if you're comfortable with wire work and you want to recreate this design using a single length of wire, that is a slightly more advanced option. So I'm going to show you now how I very quickly wind on wire. So I've passed the wire around the coiled section, and I'm just going to push that into position before flipping it around and just tidying up these coils. So you will find your own way, whichever is most comfortable for you and gives you the greatest level of satisfaction in your work. So that's currently 4 times around. So I'm just going to gently unwind that slightly so that we can see 3 wraps. There we go. So we've got 3 wraps of wire. What I'm going to do is turn it on its side. The finer gauge wire has come over the top. Slightly out of focus for a moment there, sorry about that. The finer gauge wire has come over the top, so I want this to be led now down into the coil, just here at the base. So if I turn that upside down, that might be clearer for you. And if I lay the wire over the surface and push that leading edge through and all the way around, and then I'll hold it super still and you'll be able to see what the next stage is. So I pop that down. I've wrapped 3 times around the bar where we added those beads in. Now I'm going to wrap 3 times around both the bar and the lowest section of the coil. So if I lift that gently and grip firmly, take the wire all the way around, push the leading edge inside that coil. If you can hear scratching noises, it's the tail of the wire on the paper. Push those 2 coils together and add the 3rd wrap all the way through, and then now we go back to wrapping 3 times around this segment, which is the coil at the end. So if I continue along in that direction, that's 1 and 2 and 3, and then if I flip that over, we're looking at the back side now. So we'll just trim away the excess of the finer gauge, pop that to one side because I will be able to use that, and then tidy up that end section just by making sure it's flush and smooth. So if I draw that over into position, what you can do is just make any minor edits as you go along. What I'm looking to happen is for the V here to line up with the V here. Now I'm going to show you the 2 demonstration pieces to show you 2 different options for what you can do at this stage. So with this one, it's suspended in fresh air. It is not linked at all. That V shape is hovering above the nexus point here, and this whole seagull shape is only connected at this point and this point. If I bring in the second, the slightly heavier gauge version, what I've done is added a little light wrapping just into this central section by joining these 2 sections of channel setting. It's just a case of continuing along as if you were adding a bead, and it gives you, because this is a heavier gauge wire, just a little bit more security. If you're working in the lighter wire, you absolutely don't need to worry about that. So we've done 1 complete side so far. All you would need to do is repeat on the other side. So I will show you now how to add a rosary link onto the one side just here, and then we'll talk about design options. So for the rosary linked section that leads up the neckline, I've rosary linked a single bead, then a double, then a triple, and you could continue along, perhaps graduating up and down. If you wanted to create the entire chain, you could go 1 2 3 2 1 2 3. I tend with rosary linking not to go for more than 3 beads, purely because you actually want enough bend on the neckline, and that is around about 1.25 inches long from end to end. And for me, for the comfort of my client base, I don't want bars longer than that on the neckline because it's just a little bit less than comfortable to wear. If you use some of the chain that are chains that are available, oh gosh, my verb agreement's gone completely out the window. I can't speak the English anymore. So this is single links with a beautiful bronze colourway and very, very high gloss black beads. That's a perfect accompaniment to this design, but you can continue with your own rosary linking if you prefer. So I'm just going to scooch that over to one side, find one of those beads and show you the basics of rosary linking. So for a single bead of this size, are these 8mm Czech fire polish matte coat aqua? I read a label, go me. So these are 8mm, and this is around about 2.5 inches in length. And again, this is the 18 gauge round raw copper wire. So what I will do to make my life as easy as possible is I will estimate where I think the bead will sit in the middle, add a bit of space either side, and that's about the same size as my thumb. And I'll put a turn on one side. So what I'm going to do here is create a sealed loop, a sealed rosary linking loop, and that will be coming away from the design. So for this, I'm going to make a rounded shape near to that bend that we just made, which is around about 3/4 of an inch from the end. Take that tail all the way over, and if I just drop that down, you can see what that looks like. So this is how you make the sealed loop when you're doing a rosary link. Grip a hold of just that circular shape. We're not ever looking to put pressure where wire crosses over, because that's where weakness will occur in the design. When you press one round wire on top of another round wire with your pliers, you're impacting both of them, and they will just shatter at some point, unfortunately. That's the way that wire works. And when you look at how a high tension bridge is built, their wires are all stranded together in great big long lengths. They're not pressing against each other forcefully. So I'm going to grip just that circle, take the tail around. So I just turn that over slowly. You can see all we're doing is wrapping the short tail around the neck. Now I tend to do the first move and a half with my fingers, and then I will pop in with some chain nose pliers. So what we will need to do to finish off your wrapped loop essentially is support that circular shape. Again, you're not squishing down where wires cross over, and then just chase that tail all the way around. So open and close. Let's rescue that bead before it goes on the floor amongst the dog hair. And then we've got a super neat double wrapped loop on one end. I'm then going to add my bead into position, like so. Very carefully, I'm going to bring in my chain nose pliers in this instance, and I'm going to hold them just away from that bead. I don't want to put any pressure on the bead. Then I'm going to push upwards so that our loops are 90 degrees opposing. So you've got one going this way, and then the next one will come up towards you. Come back in with those round nose pliers and create that circular form, but almost like a helix. So can you see there's a gap? If I take those pliers away, you can see that there's a gap just here. And that is there so that we can add that onto our design. So if I pop that through, slide this into the gap, like so. So we're adding to our design now. And what I'm now going to do is again grip the circular section, and I'm only holding where wires do not cross. Take the tail around, push that up as far as you can go whilst being comfortable in your own comfortable. This is the tricky part, is adding on. So again, I'm going to support just the rounded section. It's not difficult to do at home, it's difficult to do with a camera. So I'm going to take that tail all the way around the neck of the design, being respectful of that bead as much as I can. So draw the tail around, and if you do this in small movements, your rosary linking will be super neat anyway. So I'm just taking that round a little by little by little over the top until you finish that last section. So if I just pop this down in the correct orientation, you can see that we would add our second row of channel setting, we would tie the seagull to the central piece, and then we will start building our chain. And the way we added on the lower loop to the main segment is exactly how you will add on here to create that chain coming away. So if I grab in the design just like so, you can see that it's mobile. It moves around on the design, which I think is absolutely beautiful, because you can wear it super high on the neckline and it will sit like so, or you can wear that as a much more extended drop. So it becomes really quite an interesting design process. What I'm going to show you now is the dropper. I'm going to show you the base section, because this part is a repeat of what we've just done. So you will add on a rosary link section. Sarah, if you want me to demonstrate another rosary link section, do tell me and I will do that the second time.
Why don't you show us this entire bottom link here, because that is another rosary link essentially, and we're also creating a drop to the pendant. I think that's perfect.
Parfait. Okay, so I have a couple of sections of wire here which we're going to utilize. Nothing ever gets thrown away until it's far too small to use. So I'm just going to take one of those sides, and what we will do is use this, which is around about, I would say, 3.5 inches, so slightly longer now. And we're going to add in 3 beads. So let me just grab my pack of beads, and we'll start off with the extender section. So if I pop that back up to the side, is that still in shot? It is not. There you go. Don't be naughty. So what we will do is we will start by creating around about 1.25 inches from one end, a right angle bend. And what I'm going to do this time is create a loop but not close it. So I'm just going to leave that like so. This is what we will be adding on to the bottom of our demonstration piece. So next I'm going to add on 3 of those 8mm aqua beads, hopefully all the while not throwing everything on the floor. 1 bead, 2 beads, and 3 beads, counting with Jem. 1. Am I allowed to do really poor impressions or not?
Please bring it on.
It was fairly poor, and I'm terribly sorry for that. So you can see we've created a loop which is going to be the rosary link section that we add onto the design here at the lowest point of the dropper. So I'm going to now again make my loop at 90 degrees. What I have to do now is estimate enough space either side of these 3 beads so that I can get some wraps going around the central core. Now, bearing in mind this is 18 gauge wire, you just need to think about how many wraps you'd like to see. So pushing the wire up like so. So that's at 90 degrees to the first one. We're going to make a second circular shape. I think probably I've got far too much space on here. Not overly going to let it stress me out, because the more you do this, the more you will get to estimate kinds of sizes that you're looking to use. So what we would do to make our life as easy as possible is create the lower half of this loop before we add it on. So we're doing component building right now. So let's pop that up to the top. And again, we will need a scrap of that 18 gauge. This has got a pointy end on the end, so I'm just going to trim that away and very, very carefully put that in the waste pot. Looking at this, it's around about 3 to 3.5 inches. And what I'm going to do is start just over 1 inch, 1.25 inches maybe from one end, right angle bend, create myself the first half of a rosary loop, rosary link rather, by creating that shape. And you can see that that's open. See a little bit of a gap? That's a really good angle to show you. There's always a gap just here. What we're going to do now is add on this absolutely stunning, I can't remember what you called it, I'm so sorry. They are stunning though, they're beautiful.
These are Japanese Tensha beads. They are handmade in Japan. We import them in. Oh. And the word Tensha in Japanese means to transfer. So that is actually a little individual foiled decal that has been hand cut out and then transferred on top of the bead and then lacquered fully around. They are incredibly fantastic, durable. They have fantastic durability against abrasion, and they're just little works of art. They're so pretty, the Tensha beads.
A work of art is absolutely how I would describe this. It is nothing short of stunning. I've always been fascinated by Japanese art, design, culture, language. I don't speak Japanese, sadly, but it's utterly entrancing, really, really beautiful technique. So we've got the first half of our rosary link just waiting to be completed at the top here. What we're going to do at the bottom is create a nice tight coil. So again, for this to work neatly, what I want to do is start really, really close to the end of those round nose pliers. But this time, instead of making an open loop, as we have here, we're going to make a completely closed loop because the dynamic works with the round beads so well. So I started by going just past a full circuit at the base, squash that loop so that it sits nice and flat. Every time I open and close those pliers on this loop, I'm strengthening it. Turn the loop into a coil, and again, moving slowly is what's going to give you the greatest control, the greatest comfort, and also the greatest neatness. So I'm going to take that really quite close to the base of that bead. Before I offer my pliers in, again, the space above, the space below, what I'm going to do is push that coil away, hold on to the bead gently, and just complete that coil. What I would do is put my nail against the bend we've just made and draw that home. What I want it to appear like at the base is for the loop, for the coil rather, to sit directly under the bead. So you may need to play around with that slightly until you're happy with the aesthetic. So I would just push that over slightly, give it a squeeze, lock that wire once you're happy with the form. And what I mean by lock is I'm opening and closing, I'm squishing, 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 work hardening, and creating a really nice form that now won't move. If it snags on something, it's not the end of the world. It'd be nice and strong. So what we need to do now is assemble our components in a dropper. So to do that, I'm going to pick one of these ends and just finish off our rosary link. So I'm going to pull that tail all the way around. Now, the best way to do this is with 2 pairs of pliers. Ideally, 2 bent chain nose pliers, which I do actually have another pair here. So if you are going to do a lot of this, having 2 bent chain nose pliers is ideal because they can work together like so. So opening and closing just to draw that wire around, always being respectful of those beads, which I almost locked on the floor again. Take that tail up and then just tighten the coils neatly. So that is then going to link into our Tensha bead. So this is the reason we leave the gap. You can see if I orientate that correctly, there's a gap between those 2 wires passing around. Slide that into the base of the closed rosary link that we just made. And then we're going to again support the curved sections of the wire. If I put the pliers into position first, and hopefully the camera will zoom to the correct focal length, and you can see that I'm not pressing down anywhere 2 wires cross over. It's really key in having wire work that will last for a long period of time, that you just take care to kind of learn that that's not necessarily a good thing for you to be doing. So we're going to take that tail all the way around, again being mindful of our beads. It's far too beautiful to hurt it. So take that tail around. The 2 chain nose pliers work beautifully together, and you can see they're opposites. They're working opposite each other, so the handles orientate the curve away, and just draw that around until you're happy that that is sealed into position. And honestly, it can feel a bit clunky when you're doing it away from your face. You need to find a position that's comfortable for you and just give that a bit of a squeeze. So we've got our dropper section now, and by orienting our loops in opposition to one another, you should end up with that coil sitting flat against the body. If things didn't work out to plan, you have one opportunity to do a key twist, which is where I'm moving that coil by 90 degrees at the bottom, and then it should sit flat. So what we're looking to do here is add this onto the main segment that we've got the frame for. Now there are 2 ways of looking at your rosary linking. This is the side with the long coil going away from you, and that's the side that I want behind. So when you're adding this onto this is the face, this is face up. I'm going to push that through and into the base, and as that comes through and turns around, we've now got the slightly prettier side of your rosary linking facing up. So I just turn that on its side, you've got the loop section coming forwards and around at the front. So again, tricky to hold for camera, not tricky to do in real life once you get the hang of it. You do need to get that slightly out of the way. Support the loop section, but don't press down anywhere where two wires cross over. And then bring the tail around smoothly in a nice coil. Now, if you warmed this wire before you used it, it will be nice and fluid. If you're working with offcuts, it can be slightly more challenging. So I'm just going to take that all the way around, push that through until I have used all of that excess of wire. So we've just got one last little movement to do and we should be golden. So squish and then move your pliers gently in the direction that the wire is travelling, like so. If I pop this down on the desk now, obviously it's not completely sealed together, but you should be able to see the nuts and bolts of that design. Let me clear the deck so that we don't knock any beads on the floor. And then I will bring in the piece that we made before. So if I pop that to one side, just up here, and then bring in the other alternative. So this is exactly the project that we learned. The only change up that we made is we added an extra bead. We must have made that frame slightly larger for the demonstration this evening. And then you've got your rosary linking coming away. So I graduated up from 1 bead to 2 beads to 3 beads before adding in some pre-made rosary linked chain from Jessie James, which is gorgeous. If you don't fancy rosary linking, you can simply pop a jump ring on and use the ready-made chain. It's entirely up to you. I've handmade a quick J clasp at the back there, but you can always use a pre-made clasp if you wish to. And then for the last moment, I will just show you the alternative with those beautiful diamond shine. Just there. Now this is a slightly heavier gauge piece made with 16 gauge, still winding with 24 gauge, but it's all round and it's all achievable projects, I believe.
I am going to pop in a quick link to the Harriet Tan strand, the super sparkly Preciosa crystal strand from the larger of the 2 necklace pieces that Jem just showed us. This strand is so beautiful. And I don't think it's listed.
It is stunning. One of the things that you don't... Sorry, my darling, I interrupted you. After you.
No, you're fine. I said I have been posting on the Jessie James blog. You can find all of the supplies for this project that we did today. I do not have a link on the blog to this beautiful strand that Jem had used. So I'm just going to put that in the comments right here. That's the Harriet Tan strand.
It's a bit of a sneaky extra. One of the things that I really adore about this strand, apart from the fact that the whole strand is complementary to itself, is that you have got different orientations of drilling through these huge beads. They're stunning. I love having a cube bead which is corner to corner. They're absolutely gorgeous to work with.
I love it too. Jem, this is such a cool project.
Thank you. It's inspired by your good self, so you know, keep it coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, so I really wanted to see a neck piece. So that's where the inspiration from this project, as Jem was just saying, came from. If you guys, girls, creatives in the crowd, have any sort of project design or some sort of if you have any sort of design style that you would like to see Jem recreate in her own way and show how to do here on camera, please do send us a message. We'd love to hear from you.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. So this is a lot smaller, I think, than Sarah had in mind. But what I wanted to do was to create a piece which was inspired by a neck plate, but was achievable inside an hour's lesson. And it's also super achievable for people who maybe aren't as familiar with wire work as we are. So you can absolutely add more flourishes, make it bigger, use an industrial gauge wire, you know, go for your life. There's so many things that you could do with wire.
I love that so much. And everyone is asking when we will put this on replay. Yes, if you have not yet signed up for the Jesse James email, go take yourself over to jessejamesbeats.com and just scroll about halfway down the main page. You'll see where to sign up. So that way you don't miss a beat with Miss Jem Hawkes and any of the other designers that come on Jesse James Beats. But if you are antsy, go to the blog. I'm going to drop a quick link right here. You can hop on over to the JJB blog. There's a lot of other gem replays that you can see right here. JJB blog. Multitasking here. We'll have the replay for this one up, I think this evening. I think we'll have it up this evening, but if not, check tomorrow.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me tonight. It's just been an absolute delight to work with these beautiful pieces and to spend time with your good self.
I could not say, I can but what you say, I mirror those sentiments exactly, Jem. I love watching you jewelry design. It's such a nice break in the day at the end of our day here to just sort of wind down Thursday, watch you make magic with wire. It feels very achievable. And here we are, TGIAF, almost Friday.
Nearly there. Woohoo!
All right, Jem, thank you so much again. I really appreciate this time spent with you, and thank you for sharing your talent with us.
Thank you for having me, and I look forward to coming back again very, very soon.
Yes, everyone, set your clocks every Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 1 p.m. Pacific. You can find Jem Hawkes here on the Jesse James channel, making her magic with wire. Jem, we'll see you next week. Thank you so much again.
See you next week.
Bye, everyone.